In any professional sport, records can be made or broken at any time. A stroke of luck, a burst of brilliance, or a pair of good bounces could result in a record being broken before you realize it. However, I don't see any of today's players playing 10 consecutive seasons without missing a single game, or maybe scoring a hat-trick in just 21 seconds. Here are NHL's weirdest 15 records. 15. The record for the most points scored by a defenseman in a single season. In the 1970-71 NHL season, Bobby Orr had 139 points. What makes that record unique is that the player closest to Orr was only a point behind him. In 1985-86, Paul Coffey scored 138 points. Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey were exceptional players, which is why this is still considered an unbreakable record. Only 5 defensemen in NHL history have scored 100 points: Orr, Coffey, Al McInnes, Brian Leetch, and Dennis Potvin. It's worth noting that Orr broke that milestone 6 times in his brief career, while Coffey did so 5 times. 14. Highest single season plus-minus. Orr had a plus-minus 124 rating in 1970-71, the same season in which he established the record for most points by a defenseman. This record is unlikely to be broken because Orr played in a high-scoring era, which can result in a very high or very low plus-minus. This, paired with his exceptional skill level, resulted in a plus 124. The highest plus-minus appearance from the 2000s on the leaderboard is a plus-minus 52, which ranks 95th. In 2002-2003, Peter Forsberg recorded it. Number 13. Most career goaltending victories. Brodeur has retired in 2015, so this record is still fresh at 691. Patrick Roy, 551, and Ed Belfour, 484, are the second and third best goalies respectively. Chris Osgood and Nikolai Khabibulin were the closest active goaltenders at the time. Nobody will ever surpass Brodeur's accomplishments. 12. Most consecutive games. Doug Jarvis got the nickname Iron Man after playing 964 consecutive NHL games. He appeared in every game from the 1975-76 season to the 1984-85 season, and he continued to participate in some games until 1986. Nowadays, it's rare to find a player that appears in every game of a single season. Number 11. Oldest NHL player. That was Gordie Howe's age when he retired from NHL play. He's not called Mr. Hockey for nothing. Given that athletes rarely play above the age of 40 these days, I doubt Howe's record will ever be broken. It's difficult to imagine a 50-year-old playing in the modern NHL. It would be practically hard for him to keep up with the current faster game speed. Unless we can find a means to stop the aging process, Howe will hold this record in perpetuity. 10. Most assists in a single season. Wayne Gretzky makes his first appearance on this list. Keep note of how many times he emerges in the future. Gretzky has 163 assists in an 80-game season in 1985-86. For comparison, the next closest player on that list who isn't Gretzky is Mario Lemieux. Lemieux, largely regarded as Wayne's sole rival for the title of best player in history, is tied for 9th with Gretzky at 114. Number 9. Fastest hat-trick by a single player. On March 23, 1952, Bill Mosienko scored 3 goals in 21 seconds. I don't think the record will ever be broken since no one else will have the same level of luck as Mosienko did. The ability to score 3 goals in 21 seconds is probably made up of approximately 10% skill and 90% luck. I just don't see this happening again at such odds. He beat Rangers goaltender Lorne Anderson for the first time at 6:09 of the second period, and then again at 6:20 and 6:30. That's a total of 21 seconds. Nobody has ever come close to Bill's feat. Jean Beliveau is in second place with 3 goals in 44 seconds. It's not impossible, but it's dangerously close. Number 8. Most consecutive playoff series victories. From 1980 to 1984, the New York Islanders won 19 consecutive playoff series. The streak occurred during the 1980s Islanders dynasty. The Isles' stretch of 19 consecutive postseason series triumphs exemplifies their absolute supremacy. Their streak ended in the 1983-84 playoffs when they were defeated in the Stanley Cup Finals by the Edmonton Oilers. Number 7. Most career points. I could easily just say, see previous slide, and be done with this one, but I think I'll go over it a little more thoroughly. Wayne Gretzky scored 2,857 points in 1,487 games during his career. This equates to around 1.92 points per game. As I said in the previous slide, his assist total alone is enough to surpass any other NHL player's point total in history. I also claimed that Mark Messier, with 1,887 points, is the player closest to Gretzky. Despite playing 269 more games than Gretzky, Messier could only come within 970 points of him. Gretzky was a once-in-a-lifetime player, and I don't see his points total being broken. You can also be a once-in-a-lifetime fan by supporting our channel by subscribing. Number 6. Most goals by a rookie. I'm sure you were all expecting this to appear somewhere on the list. Teemu Selanne scored 76 goals as a rookie in the 1992-93 NHL season, the greatest goal total in his career. That is not only the most goals scored by a rookie, but also the 6th most goals scored in NHL history. That year, the Finnish Flash also had 56 assists for 132 points. Number 5. Fastest comeback goal by a team. This is one of those records that was purely coincidental. On December 19, 1987, the Boston Bruins and the St. Louis Blues both scored 2 seconds apart. When Ken Linesman scored with 10 seconds remaining in the third period, the Bruins were behind 6-4. The Blues' minimal opportunity of scoring again was eliminated when Doug Gilmour scored off the face-off into an open net. That is, in my perspective, insane. Although it is almost certainly not going to be broken unless it's broken by a hundredth of a second or something like that. I don't believe you can go any quicker than 2 seconds. Number 4. Most Stanley Cups won in a lifetime. Most players never have the opportunity to lift the Stanley Cup. The wonderful feeling of skating around the ice with hockey's most precious item is something that most NHL players do not get to experience. Some, though, have won the cup more than once. Jean Béliveau won the Stanley Cup 17 times in his career, 10 as a player and 7 as a member of Montreal's front office. The high figure could be attributed to the NHL being a 6-team league when Béliveau played. Number 3. Most Stanley Cup Finals appearances in a row. From 1951 until 1960, the Montreal Canadiens reached the Stanley Cup Final 10 times in a row. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? Sure, it looks nice, but this record was achieved when the NHL was only 6 teams strong. Is it starting to look less amazing now? A 10-year final streak would be very impossible today. This record, like many others, is due to a shortage of teams. That doesn't change the fact that this is one of the league's most untouchable records. The Canadiens were enjoying a dynasty, which is unusual in today's NHL. The Detroit Red Wings' run since the late 1990s has come the closest to a dynasty in contemporary times. Number 2. Goaltender with the most consecutive complete games. This is an astounding accomplishment, especially considering Hall played at an age when goaltenders did not wear masks. Today, goaltenders wear ridiculous amounts of padding and equipment, but Hall played his streak while wearing the most modest of equipment. Even with all of the equipment that modern goalies wear, they do not play full seasons. Hall went nearly 8 seasons without missing a game. Number 1. Most career Stanley Cup victories as a player. In his 19-year career, Henry Richard won 11 Stanley Cups, beating Jean Béliveau by 1 victory. Because of the amount of NHL teams, I can almost promise that this record will never be broken. A player reaching the Stanley Cup Finals 11 or more times in his career is practically inconceivable in the NHL's 30-team league. Richard spent the majority of his career in a league with only 6 teams, known as the Original Six. The league grew to 12 clubs in 1967, but that is still much less than 30. If it was difficult to achieve half a century before, it'll be impossible to achieve now. If you've made it so far, I'd say you enjoyed this video. So here's more NHL content for you. Click the link to watch the NHL player who went from winning the Stanley Cup to being homeless, and let us know in the comments if we've missed any records in our list.